Previously on Sonic Prime.
What is going on here? What's going on, Tails?
The names.
No! What? Tails! You gotta figure out what's going... what was that now? But I honestly have no idea what you're talking about. What? I hear you talking, but I have no idea what you're saying. What's going on? He's just like Tails.
He's not Tails. He's 9.
What the what? Come on, little buddy.
Stop calling me that!
After everything we've been through, you'd see things the way I do, like the real Tails would.
I am real!
Trust me!
Trust you? The only person I can trust is myself.
Not again!
Welcome to The Hill is Always Greener, a show where 4 friends have chill discussions about Sonic the Hedgehog to distract themselves from the inevitable passage of time and their own rapidly waning ability to relate to the youth. I'm CyberLink, and as long as I'm around, you'll always have a wingman.
I'm Rusty GameBuddy, because I'm tired of this show.
And I'm Black Crit. Wait, hang on.
Whoa.
Stop! Don't shoot! This man... Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Faulerro.
Froggy. I'm RockTheJake.
In any universe.
In every universe.
Except the one where you're sheet metal instead of just a rock.
Well, that's interesting. The Hill is Always Greener Prime. I'm sort of imagining like the alternate universe versions of ourselves. I bet we'd be funny tropes like pirates and cowboys and things like that.
I don't know if they'd want to watch these last few episodes either.
No.
Yeah, we're talking about the last batch of Sonic Prime, and we're looking forward to not having to talk about the last batch of Sonic Prime. I don't like being like this. I don't like being so negative, but I'm gonna be real. It kind of ended on a wet fart.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we have done quote unquote bummer topics before, where we confronted how like Sonic Heroes didn't live up to our nostalgia or the frustrating parts of Sonic Superstars. And I still feel like we came out of those with like, yeah, but there's good stuff, and there is good stuff in Sonic Prime. Like, I'm going to say up front, like, hey, if you just got a kid that likes Sonic the Hedgehog, you can show them this show, no problem. But if you were expecting this to end on a satisfying note and have like cool things to add to the Sonic universe, and especially if you're a bunch of grown-ass men like us, then, well, you're probably going to be disappointed.
This episode is merely by obligation at this point. I don't think we should have had to make this 3 episodes, but that's where we're at, because that's the way Netflix releases these shows in quote-unquote seasons, but it is the final batch of 7 this time.
Which is so arbitrary. Good.
Yeah.
One longer than the other, admittedly, but
I would argue unnecessarily, because for the amount of things that actually happen in these episodes, man, I don't know if they needed 7 or maybe even half that.
Right. I don't know if they needed all 23 of these episodes altogether, to be honest with you.
Mm-mm.
This felt like something that could have been one of those batches just condensed down, and it might have been a bit more satisfying. We certainly wouldn't have had to do so many episodes on it. But here we are in the alternate universe where it turns out they did do that. And boy, sorry, we don't mean to be so negative right at the beginning. It's weird how we were in a much more positive mood when we were talking about Sonic Underground, which is a show which is so bad.
But it's so,
I would argue objectively worse.
Yes. But Sonic Underground is so bad that when you gather a group of friends to poke fun at it, and that is where the fun comes from. Sonic Prime is a perfectly competently made show. It's just irritating in a lot of ways.
It's like being excited about a new towel, and it's like, oh, it's so fluffy, I can't wait to use it. And then like a few weeks go by, and it's just like, well, this sure is a towel. It gets me dry.
Yeah. Oops. I spilled some bleach on it. Oop, the edges are fraying. Well,
This
maybe-
towel became less fluffy as time went by, that's for sure. That's the best way to describe this show.
Look, we're already losing it. Well, okay, before we jump into this last batch of Sonic Prime, we don't talk a lot about Sonic-y things anymore because there's just not a ton coming out, and we tend to skip news because on our schedule it'll just date the recording. However, we had some pretty big announcements the week before we started recording this, and all I gotta say is, all hail Shadow the Hedgehog, baby!
Just so you guys get to hear our opinion on it several months later. Sonic X Shadow. Oh, hello.
Yes.
I mean,
think
everyone's
it's-
made the joke. It's right
Well, I
there.
mean, Shadow is cool in Sonic X. I see what you mean.
Or is it Sonic Cross Shadow?
I think it's very progressive for Sega to just really embrace the fanfic culture and release a game all about that.
Yes, finally acknowledging the only good ship.
Finally acknowledging Jeremy Short from so many years ago.
Yes. I don't know who was running the Sonic Paradox Twitter account, but thank you. That really made my day to see people saying they still liked that short. But we are talking about the announced Sonic Generations remastered remake that this did leak on Twitter. And I tell you what, up until I saw Shadow the Hedgehog interrupt the cutscene for Generations, I was like, I don't know if I believe this. This seems pretty far-fetched. And then it happened. They are adding a completely new campaign to this new version of Sonic Generations, starring Shadow the Hedgehog, where he confronts the demons of his past, including Black Doom and the Bio Lizard. And man, it looks so cool.
It does, man. I'm like legit excited to play this.
Yeah. I want to, like, we will definitely have to do an episode on either Shadow's character, or it'll probably come up in our eventual, like, Shadow game, maybe even in 06, which are coming eventually. But, like, why I still think Shadow is cool, even though, like, they've really beefed some of his appearances. But yeah, man. I'm excited for more details. I'm interested to see. I hope this remaster turns out better than, the last 3D Sonic remaster they tried. And also there's still the sort of Damocles hanging about, like, how is this going to affect the original release of Sonic Generations that has, 13 or so years of fan mods, and that's a business side that I feel like we've always been very, like, willing to acknowledge and be incredibly critical of. But hey, right now nothing is set in stone. We'll see.
And then the other big announcement.
We got it's less than 10 seconds. It's a logo reveal for the Sonic 3 movie coming in December of this year. But it confirmed that Robotnik is back. That old nutter Jim Carrey. He didn't hang up the mustache just yet. And also the fact that they use, what is it, like 4 orchestrated notes from Live and Learn?
Yeah.
And it's just, man.
Still counts.
Still counts. That Johnny Gioli retweeted it and was like, "Oh, sounds familiar." And I'm like, "Oh man, I think they're gonna do it."
Oh man, can you imagine Sonic music in this Sonic movie?
Yeah. It was one of our biggest criticisms, was less pop hits from 12 years ago that my mom likes, and more appropriate Sonic music. But
And more rock music from 20 years ago.
yeah, I mean, to be fair, you
These
ain't
to be things that
wrong.
we like this movie will hopefully be.
Yep. And they did some more cast announcements. I mean, we're not going to sit here and speculate on who's who, but like Kristen Ritter's in there, and also a young actress who sure looks like a Maria Robotnik, and I don't know how to properly describe the reaction where it's like, oh wow, she looks great, can't wait to see her get blown away.
Immediately in the crosshairs of the Sonic fandom, this small child.
But I hope, I would hope people understand that it's done out of love for the source material, not a bloodlust against this innocent child.
Yeah, no. I sure hope her character isn't allergic to bullets.
But yes, that both of that stuff was pretty exciting. The Sonic Shadow Generations things makes a lot more sense as being real when you're like, oh yeah, that movie is coming out. And also, there's probably a lot of kids who like the Sonic movies who maybe don't know Shadow's origin. And, unfortunately, I would say, well, whose fault is that, Sega? They can't play, the games he stars in on modern hardware unless they have a PC and someone to mod it for them properly.
Well, now all these kids get to learn about Black Doom and everything related to the Shadow the Hedgehog game, I think.
Those kids already know. They've all watched the real-time fan dub.
Yeah! That was the first thing I saw was Black Doom's back. Hey, Shadow, it's me!
All right, we are holding off from talking about this topic that we don't want to talk about. But it's the reason we're here today. Let's get it over with.
Hey, it's slightly linked to where Shadow does do a few cool things in these last episodes.
He does. Before f***ing off repeatedly. Being sidelined over and over again because he's too cool to have in the main show on the reg.
Yeah.
I suppose if Shadow were there, he might not fuck up as much as Sonic does. So, okay. Sonic Prime.
Yep.
So shall we just do a quick recap of the story up until this point?
Yes, go right ahead.
So Sonic was a dunce. He broke a prism that made multiple universes, essentially Shatterverses.
Shattered the Shatterverse.
He shattered the Shatterverse into shatterable shatters, and then he found all of his friends in different versions of those Shatterverses.
Asked all of them multiple times, "Hey, why aren't you acting normal? You're my friends. Be normal." And they're like, "Arg, I'm a pirate, you stupid idiot."
And then Unga Bunga, me jungle. But basically, the first two seasons are Sonic getting used to his surroundings, trying to figure out how to get back, befriending Nine specifically. Like, he's friends with everybody, but like he really puts in the effort for Nine because, Sonic and Tails are like bread and butter. They just go together.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jake. You just made the same mistake that Sonic also constantly makes throughout these seasons, is that Nine isn't Tails. He's Nine. He's his own person.
Oh, yeah.
He's his own original character.
Now, remind me in 10 minutes to remind you of that again. And again and again.
And again and again. But basically, season 2 is them growing closer together so that he can... I mean, let's be real. Sonic is... He cares about everybody, but he also desperately wants Green Hill back. And, I would, if I lost my home and everything that I knew, I would kind of want that back too if it was a chance.
Yeah, if you saw horrible, ghost visions of your friends stuck in a loop saying one thing that they've said at one point in their lives.
Just tell me what to smash. But at the end of season 2, basically, Nine is tired of being compared to a version of himself that he doesn't know. And he takes the prism, puts it back together, and makes his own little world. And yeah, then that's where we come into season 3, where we have some contention between Sonic and Nine.
That's a word for it.
A little bit of ill feelings. But yeah, season 3 starts out with basically Nine has officially, at this point, put together the prism. He's harnessing the power, but he's realizing that he doesn't have all the power because whatever's left is within Sonic, which, makes sense because of how Sonic is able to jump between worlds with relative ease.
Yeah, he needs that Sonic juice.
He needs the Sonic juice. He needs to squeeze him like a wet rag and just drip out every last bit of it.
Yeah.
So with this contention in mind, Sonic is trying to reason with Nine, saying, we could still fix this. We can make things the way they were. And
because that has worked so well up to this point.
Yeah, you would think that Sonic might learn that saying the same thing over and over again wouldn't help, but Nah.
No, he's been around his ghost friends too often. He's like, oh, I'll copy them and just say the same thing over and over.
It's working on me. It must work on the others. They figure out that, Nine's kind of set on his plan, and Shadow helps Sonic get out of the Grim to be able to get back to New York and recruit some help to have way too many episodes of fighting.
Yeah, well, that's how it's going to go.
Also, we get more Chaos Sonic style robot doppelgangers. For all my faults with this quote unquote season, I do really like the designs on these.
Yeah. I remember making a note in the first episode, like, oh yeah, that's cool that we get really neat looking like robot versions of everybody, except for Big. And then I watched the rest of the season, of course. But,
yeah, it is interesting though, because it's like they're Sonic's friends made into robots. You're like, oh yes, all of Sonic's friends: Knuckles, Amy, Rouge, and Birdie.
Yeah.
Specifically the big birdie from Boss Cage Maze.
Yes. my note here actually says, like, quote for quote, love that we get cool robo versions of the rest of the cast, except for Big, doing my boy dirty again with no cool bot.
Me watching these episodes like, hey, everybody that complained about Chaos Sonic talking, is this what you wanted?
I know, right? I also want to mention, like we've been like a little bit dour, a little bit negative on the going into this, but there are still some really cool aspects to just the show in this season, and one of them is the fact, and it's a small thing, but I sincerely love how much use Shadow gets out of his air shoes, rocket boots, whatever you want to call them.
I mean, if you're gonna go out of your way to actually explain them in the beginning of the show, might as well use them.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they actually get to use it. I wish he got to use them even more, but like this this final season, quote unquote, really exemplifies the term plot convenience.
To its credits, the animation is still top tier. There's some great moves being thrown around during the fight scenes. I gotta give massive props to everybody on the animation team for going above and beyond.
Oh yeah,
it's not the animation team I take any exception with too. It's a lot of what else is going on in here, but it looks great.
Oh yeah, like another one of my notes is that the action scenes are like seriously a step above basically just a lot of other animated kid shows that I would say that are out currently right now. Like, there's been kid shows that have had fantastic animation for like fight scenes and other things, but like I think right now, like in this very specific time of 2024, like these are some of the best action scenes in a kid show that I've seen in a while.
I couldn't help just because the trailer dropped for that new Megamind show on Paramount Plus, and just seeing incredibly tepid reaction to that animation versus this, and I'm like, yes, the animation on Sonic Prime is pretty good. Like, there's nothing can take that away, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I'm going to drop a couple screenshots that I took from one of the episodes, because like one of the things that I really enjoy, and I think 3D movies are finally like getting brave enough to start incorporating, is squash and stretch, like really well defined squash and stretch. And Shadow has some of the best squash and stretch that I have seen in 3D in a while.
Yeah.
So look at that boy. Sorry, listening audience, you're not able to appreciate this, but this is why you need to go and pause during fight scenes on this show, apparently, because he's gomu knowing about the
yes. It does. It just adds a lot to the fluidity of the characters and the impact of the action, and I'm very much glad for it.
I'm so glad that the new generation has really good footage to work with for their AMVs the same way we do.
Yes. Yeah, if nothing else, I hope we see some good fan cams from Sonic Prime.
I do want to describe one screenshot that I put in here. I put in two, but like one is just a screenshot of Shadow. Wow, I did this SA2 thing.
I found you, faker.
See, now this is how Amy gets caught out,
Yep, there we go. I get canceled on Twitter. There's a screenshot of Shadow doing a kick, and the boy's leg is so skinny and long, and his foot is a banana. It is curved and
with his
so
air
cool.
jets, it almost looks like pepperoni pizza.
It does. Banana and pepperoni.
I told you, Sonic, I hate anchovies.
And I love lettuce.
I don't know if hey, that's another thing this show gave us.
Yes.
I really like to see people sharing like animators on the show talking about getting to work on like some really cool scenes with their favorite characters, and also like interesting references. I think we pointed out in the other episodes like the one animator who snuck in a lot of Sonic's like Smash moveset.
Yeah.
And references to like the opening cutscene to Unleashed, but then there's also a fight scene with it's not Rusty Rose's robot Amy, who is Pirate Amy, Black Rose.
Black Rose.
Black Rose has a cool scene where she fights off like several of these jobber robots with her sword that is straight up taken from Police Story 2, a Jackie Chan movie from 1988. And it's pretty cool, like quite the pull, but yeah, sure, why not?
I really appreciate like one of my notes, like as like a final thought, and I know we're not near the end, but I figured I could bring it up because it applies here, is that the action scenes throughout the show are like, I would say they range from like at least decent in some ways to mostly good and like really fantastic. A lot of the action scenes are like inspired, in my opinion. And like, I feel like even though there is just so much action and so much fighting to the detriment of the story, I'm glad that this animation studio got the chance to be able to do so much cool stuff with so many different scenarios.
Yeah, like looking at what they had to work with, where they have this big climactic battle where I'm pretty sure they're using just about every character model we have seen throughout the show. And, we realized that in season 2, like, we're not going to get Maria Robotnik Cowboy World, unfortunately. But that they are, they worked with what they got, even though, the Grim is kind of this big blank. I hate to say, I saw lots of people, and I don't disagree. It's like, it's a big blank computer generated like Marvel Cinematic Universe fighting,
which is
arena.
appropriate considering how this is where the finale takes place. Spoilers, but ends up feeling like one of those. And not in a good way.
But the action is very good. It is unfortunately let down by just like the lack of a motivating story.
We talked about Nine putting the prison together, finding out that he needs Sonic's energy, squeezing him like a wet rag to get it all out.
And that plot point in of itself is not bad, because that kind of happens a lot, where Sonic just happens to be the like, yeah, of course he's the super special one. That happens. That's movie Sonic. That happens a lot. Oh, Sonic uses the Chaos Emeralds, but... So it at least makes sense. It's just that poor Nine spends the next, 3 or 4 episodes, like, repeating that every 20 minutes or so, that he needs Sonic's energy.
I need Sonic's energy.
By the way, it just occurs to me now that the Grim is kind of like our final climactic location for this show, and we should have twigged early on that when Nine was making his little, as I called it before, his default Minecraft world, he called it the Grim, and it was like, this is going to be my paradise. I'm like, yeah, there's some pretty on-the-nose villain stuff, actually. I know he's supposed to be a little edgy boy, but it's almost setting up the fact that he's going to be the big bad, which he is, and he embraces quite a bit in the show to an almost comical degree. If he had a mustache, he'd be twirling it at times.
Him like setting up base in the Keyblade graveyard probably was a bit of a
See, I thought it reminded me of the formless void that Sephiroth and Cloud clash in at the last final Omni/Slash cutscene in the original Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, this weird, like, it's rainbows in the background and galaxies and stars, but there's nothing there. It's like, that's the Grim.
Sonic basically manages to make his getaway while Shadow is left behind to fight all of the robot doppelgangers,
thereby knocking him off the episode.
The Chaos Sonics, but not fun. Like,
the Grims, a brotherhood of Grims, if you will. And sorry, it's kind of. I'm looking at the Wikipedia. They're apparently called Grimions. That's their overall term. Where did that
What?
come from?
Oh,
Is that a
he never
confirmed?
said that. That's
Yeah.
No, he
someone-
certainly didn't. But there's lots of stuff like if you're looking at the subtitles of the show, they'll be like calling a character or a thing by a name that's never said.
true,
Right.
true.
Like
Now
they
that
don't
was
even-
okay. That's another thing with these guys. Like this first round of robots he creates, which it starts off, it's a Chaos Sonic, but it's different colors, and then it's robot doubles of all of the characters we've seen.
I found out the name Grimion comes from Sonic Forces Speed Battle.
Oh my gosh!
What?
Well, okay, everything's canon, right? But later these guys get referred to as alphas, and they are stronger, and also are where the rest of the robot clones are coming from, the army. I don't remember 9 ever saying that before, like the 5th or 6th episode either.
Yeah.
There are certain like characters knowing the names of things that haven't been explained by any other characters in dialogue.
Yeah.
I think-
just like they just assume that that it's been explained at some point, I guess.
I think Shadow basically just came up with the name and everybody stuck with it. Just like, they're alphas. Yeah, okay.
And those guys are betas.
That's funny because that almost, if you want to read into it, that's almost cope like Shadow's like, yeah, the ones that were kicking my ass, those were alphas. They're really strong, actually, you guys. You guys, those are the strong ones. Okay, I was holding my own, but then,
I could have taken off my inhibitor rings, but I didn't want to smash them too fast.
yeah, I didn't want to be too cool. Which is another criticism I've seen where I do think Shadow is cool in this show. He does, what did you say earlier, Faulerro? He gets fridged every other episode because he can't be too cool, or like... like you said, inhibitor rings, like, we could have done something with that. Or, hey, he brings up the fact that he lost that green Chaos Emerald just to remind us that it happened, and then doesn't do anything with that. Like, I thought for sure. but no. So, yeah, Shadow can be cool, but he also needs to get the crap beat out of him for some reason. Feels like, I saw some people say, like, at times Shadow felt more like what Prime Knuckles' role would fit in here. Like, no, so I can handle this, Sonic, and you see him getting beaten up, but he's still holding his own. Where, like, no, I kind of just want to see Shadow, like, do what he does eventually, like, punch through one of these robots. Like, the rest of the crew are holding their own against these robots, so when you see Shadow getting beaten up by them, it just kind of, it seems like they had to nerf him too much.
They kind of Goku'd him a little bit, where they have to, like, eliminate him for a while before he shows up again, because he's too powerful, he's too cool, he's the coolest.
Again, props to Ian Hanlon. He's a very cool Shadow voice that I like a lot.
Yeah, I think he's
I
great.
think especially his last few moments in the show, like the last 5 minutes, I'm like, yeah, this guy gets it. I liked him a lot.
I am the ultimate life form. I go wherever I want. Chaos control!
And the funny thing is, he doesn't have to even do, like, a very, like... It's not like a put-on voice at all. He sounds kind of like a guy, just with a slight... I don't know if there's a slight sort of edge to his voice, but it's just...
Yeah.
Like, we mentioned it in the original ones. They haven't told him to sound like Kirk Thornton's, gravelly Shadow at all.
Not really. We've said it before that it reminds me the most of David Humphrey, who still puts on a shadow. It's more like David Humphrey after SA2, where it's a little more natural, like in Heroes. And that's just the Shadow I've always liked. I think that's closer to the like Koji Yusa's Japanese performance as well. It's not put upon. When Shadow started, it's no wonder, like, I think that contributed to, like, treating Shadow as like an edgy joke, is that his English voice started to be, like, very put upon and very gravelly, and I have never preferred that for the character.
I do wonder if, like, part of the reason it even happened... And sorry, we're getting into, like, overall Sonic and Shadow stuff here, but...
Hey, it's the year of Shadow.
I wonder if this is partly because Jason Griffith, when playing the character, had to really differentiate Sonic and Shadow. So he, like, put it on a little bit more to make the character stand out.
Yeah, yeah. And there's all kinds of like interpersonal, like production politics going all the way back to the 4Kids era of like, okay, can we just save some money here and get Jason to do both? And because Shadow is very much closer to Griffith's like regular speaking voice. His Sonic voice is very
More put on.
Yes, more put on. And yeah, I mean, you know, everybody knows Jason Griffith also plays multiple other characters, including Jet and whatever. And we're going to do an episode on that someday. But yeah, it's hard not to think like the reason Shadow sounds like that now might be a decision that was just cutting costs way back then. Oh, yeah. But don't get me started on Sega and consistency again.
So I guess moving forward in the story, which there's like we keep joking, not much of it in this season. We have the second episode, which is Dome Sweet Dome, where basically the main points are Sonic gets back to New York and he's able to broker a deal with the Chaos Council to allow people to start taking shelter there because of, you know, everything is going wrong. There's rips in the sky. People are falling left and right because 9 is literally shifting the geography of the entire world back and forth.
Which at least gets pointed out a few times is the council's fault. They started the split, the reshattering of the Shatterverse. So it's their fault to begin with. 9 just isn't making it better.
But no, naturally, the people in charge are going to blame it on who was there before them, so...
Right. Oh, man.
All the while, by the way, I'm sorry, 9 has neocortexing his ass off in the background with his giant head. Just full-on embracing the villain stuff now, it feels like.
Oh, I swear I saw someone post a single frame, because I didn't catch it on my watch-through, but I think there's a single frame of that where... 9's hair isn't rendered, and it was he's like, oh no, bald 9, he's coming to get me.
Paying no attention to the man behind the prism.
Oh, see, this is why he has to start wearing a fedora.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Remember jokes about fedoras?
Milady.
Just big floating 9 hovering up in the air. Don't you realize the power I have in my fingertips? You can't run away from me.
Which is basically what he does, because he does this just to appear and say, Sonic, give me your energy. I need it. And then...
I definitely won't be saying this for the next 5 episodes.
Sonic, give me your energy. And Sonic's like, well, I'm the king of the ring, so I'm bringing you the energy. No, sorry, that's kind of spoiling. Not yet.
I will say, like, by this second episode of the season, the Robo Birdie / Flicky sound already got very old because it's only like 2 sounds that they use, and I'm just like, it's a cool sound for the first episode. I was like, okay, I like that, and then the second episode starts, and it's just that so much, and it's just like, okay, this is already old.
Well, 9 keeps using them, doesn't he? Because that's why he's like, oh no, actually. The ones of this one character only shows up on one of the worlds is the best one, actually. I'm sending that one out all the time, because it can fly, I guess.
Right.
I was about to say, it's because they can fly, but then so can Tails and Rouge, so...
well, they don't have a Tails one.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. I guess that would be a little...
You'd think they would, but I guess...
I didn't even pick up on that. Like,
well, yeah, because like, in a later episode, like, 9 sees Sails and Mangy, and he's like, there's only one me.
Yeah.
There's only one 9.
I feel like that might have been a cooler reveal if, like, you know, because the whole time 9 is switching back and forth between, like, drawing energy from the prism and channeling it through his tails, and he's also... Every time he does it, he does like a Dragon Ball power-up screen.
Yeah.
I mean, every single time. Yes. And...
I'm sorry, you just keep cutting to him like an angry teenager going, this is all Sonic's fault. I hate you.
He's shooting power beams, and he's giving the power to his robot army so they can be stronger. But I feel like that might have been a cooler reveal if he said, you know, screw it, this is my, you know, my trump card, and he makes like his own robot clone of himself. But no, that doesn't happen. Instead, jumping ahead a bit, instead we get a giant Titan-sized big robot, and Sonic falls to his knees like he's Charlton Heston.
I love Robot Big so much.
Big body.
I like the robot. I think whatever joke they do with Sonic, where he's like, "No, how could you? I'm like, what are you doing? Get up. I feel like whatever they were going for just falls flat. But yes, the robot big that unhinges its jaw and peppers the landscape with froggy bombs is pretty good. On
Just
its
the
own.
big old Zaku head on him. It's
Yeah.
I also, in talking just now, I did just realize that 9 has the same energy as the video of that one kid who's like in his room going, "When will you learn that your actions have consequences?"
Santa Claus or Sonic.
Oh yes.
It does.
basically. But that was rewinding a bit. Like,
Yeah, we have to catch up to that point, I think.
Yeah.
Sonic convinces the Chaos Council, like, hey, we gotta all band together. And they're like, why should we listen to you? And I don't even remember what he says here, because again, they repeat this exact moment later.
He says, "Because I'm the main character."
And basically, he convinces them to trust them. They need to. Sonic, I think we take a break. He has to go rescue, who is it? Black Rose, and I think Sails from,
And Catfish.
And Catfish from No Place. Like, they got left behind and that world is falling apart. So he rescues them and then realizes, like, oh man, I guess this is my fault. I'm going to go fight 9 directly, but by myself. Which lasts for about 5 minutes because everybody else comes to the Grim to help him fight too.
Yeah.
Because how else would we have a big MCU fight without everybody?
It really is. With that background and everything. With all the characters there, and they've built up these big moments of them all teaming up and stuff. And
And I'm sorry, I don't mean to use that as a pejorative. I hope people know what I mean when I mean it's just a bunch of characters running at each other and fighting. Like,
they do that shot where it's like that full-on Avengers shot of them all like attacking each other from both sides.
I'm more saying, like, it's obvious they were inspired by it. I'm not just saying, like, oh, you know, all that superhero crap. Like, I'm not being that reductive, but...
So since you mentioned those 2 plot points, I would like to read 2 notes that I had for the end of No Escape and then the beginning of the next episode, 9's Lives. Nine's Lives. So at the end of No Escape... Oh, I actually didn't even write it down. Okay, these are actually both at the beginning of 9's Life. My first note is, gotta say up front, really glad we didn't get the whole "you betrayed me" Sonic plotline that they could have easily done. Tails is smart; he knew what was up immediately. And then my next note immediately after that is, never mind, damn it, Tails literally says, "You betrayed me."
Yeah, like, me and Jackie watching this had the same response. Like, at first I was like, oh, you know, that they've proven that 9 is smart, and he gets it. He's like, yeah, I get it. No, wait! Fuck you!
I was like, come on! That's like the lowest hanging fruit story plot you could have, like, dialogue you could have written, and you did it! Sorry, that legitimately annoyed me.
I apologize because you brought up your notes. Like, I skipped straight to the end of the next episode because the only thing that happens in No Escape is that he rescues the characters from No Place, and meaning we skipped over the... Hey, you remember those pixelated flashback things? We get one more in this season.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, I don't hate the idea of it. This is the worst looking one for sure. I mean,
it's Sonic Advance free stuff, right? Like,
yeah.
Sunset
Jim
Hill.
Roll is there, and then he dies.
Yeah, for no reason.
And I mean, I feel like we personally already hashed this out with the other ones. Like, this is obviously a Man of Action thing. Like, they do these for their other shows. They did this in the Mega Man one, and they're obviously not too concerned with them looking accurate or good.
I don't know if it added much either, because it's just like showing... Remember, Sonic and Tails are usually a team and friends, and now they're not, I guess. I guess that's all that they were doing with it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, this cemented in my head that, you know, not to rehash like drama I saw on Twitter, but the fact that Ian Flynn like piped up at when this released and said like, hey, remember when I said I knew how the show was canon? It said, well, it doesn't really matter because of how it ends. And people got mad at him. And I'm like, y'all, like Ian and oh man, I just had y'all tell me, Ryan,
Hanlon.
Thank you. Were like story consultants. That is their names in the credits. This show, I bet you my bottom dollar, was being written and developed before whatever the lore team that exists now was put together. And so, like, this goofy Sonic Advance 3 flashback with Sonic and Tails and also Jimroll and Eggman, like, I'm telling you, that was probably the extent of like Ian and Ryan's contributions, where they were asked to, like, hey, we all go over these scripts and make sure, like, we don't screw anything major up. And they probably said, like, yeah, you can do Sonic Advance 3, or, like, you know, make sure Sonic doesn't make any goofy mother-in-law jokes because he doesn't have a mother-in-law. And then it was up to Sega and Man of Action, you know, the people who produced and actually made the show, to take their, you know, consultations and advice and do whatever with them that they, you know, that they decided to do. So, man, Ian Flynn did not write this show. I would be very surprised if, like, any of their actual advice made it into the show. So
what? Like, they can't. There's not even much for them to do. Like,
no.
If they really wanted to say, like, them to, like, confirm whether any of this is canon, they'd be like, okay, red line through everything. Well, okay, not quite, but there would be so much they wouldn't have a show left, I don't think.
I know. Like, it reminds me of the leaked Sonic Forces documents where, wasn't it Aaron Weber, like, did just that, who said, like, no, redline this, please don't do this, people are going to be mad at this, and then they did it all anyway. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm saying nicely, because I feel like I'm mean on Twitter sometimes, and I always regret it. I'm saying nicely to people to learn how the things you like are made, so when you're frustrated with something, you can be mad at the right person.
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, it's never going to be a single individual. And just because Ian Flynn is very online, God bless him, doesn't mean it's his fault.
So there's, I think we talked about it before the episode proper. I don't think we've mentioned it yet, but I have a note here about Rouge/Rebel. And we talked about her character a bit beforehand, and I think we can talk about it a little bit right here. The note that I have for the episode of Nine's Lives, because there is a part where Sonic says that Rebel should bring up a plan of how to disrupt everything Nine's doing, which we know is not going to work. But my note is that I genuinely enjoy seeing Rouge/Rebel being a brilliant tactician. And when we were talking before, I said that I like the fact that in the show, Rouge/Rebel/ all the other variants get to have a high level of competence and a station of power, and that she's not, and I forgot to say this earlier, but I'm glad that she's not like vapid or like anything like that. But it's also a bummer that, like, out of the main cast, she's kind of barring Big from the situation. She's really the only one who doesn't get her own character arc like pretty much everybody else does. And that's kind of a bummer. Like, she's kind of, with that, it's like, it kind of balances, like, hey, she's, you know, in a station of power, good competence, but she has basically no character arc, and that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah. And, like, we talked about this in the second episode that we did of this, where we were like, oh, I guess Rouge isn't getting one. And we were like, that sucks. And Big not getting one is fine, I suppose, because he's just there for jokes. That's kind of Big's thing. We did joke about a Mr. Big, sort of mafia kind of Big, but no, there's not much you can really do. But yeah, Rouge is an okay character here, but she doesn't really get to do much of anything, or really, I suppose she's kind of Rougey, so to speak. She doesn't have a Master Emerald or jewels to really fawn over, and now, the most of the time, we're just seeing these different versions of Rouge, which are kind of just the same Rouge over and over, just one of them has a pirate voice.
Yeah.
But it's fine, I guess.
It's unfortunate, because, like you said, she doesn't get an arc, but I feel like they could have still done... And again, it just makes me wonder, like, how much the people putting these stories together, like, actually drew from the established characters. Because we are introduced to the real Rouge, quote unquote, in season 1, and she has a pretty. I like she has, like, basically the one scene where she gets a pretty funny joke of, acknowledging that she is a treasure hunter, that she's stealthy, and also, yeah, she came through the garage door that Sonic and Tails left open. That's funny. Yeah. That's a good moment. But then I feel like, unlike Amy, who has a couple of arcs here, like, not only do we get to meet Thorn Rose in that whole thing, which I think we were all pretty high on, like that whole little character arc.
Yeah, like Thorn had her moments. Rusty obviously had a lot of stuff. And then, even Black Rose got a fair bit once she and Rusty actually met and it became like a thing.
Yeah, and then they all get to meet, and there's a cool, it's the Amy team. But I feel like they could have still done that with Rouge, even though her doppelgangers don't get character arcs, and it just like Rebel Rouge is, you could say, is the tactician side of Rouge.
Yeah, she's literally the leader of the resistance. It's like, you have Princess Sally at home, use her.
Yeah. Like Rebel Rouge is the tactician part of Rouge. Like, Rouge, when she's stealing gems, like she's still got to make a plan and whatnot. But then I feel like they don't do any of that for the other Rouges. Like Rouge in Boss Cage Mage, Prim Rouge, could have been, I don't know, just like another aspect of her character. And even like Baton Rouge, like, I don't know, it might have been interesting if she was the one that did the original mutiny on Dreadnoughts, because she's also treasure crazy, but they just don't do anything with it. And so at the end of the series, it's like, yep, Rouge was there. She didn't really act like Rouge. And, it even made me like, Kazumi Evans does a great performance. Like all of the cast is very good. Like we've said all these episodes, these are established actors. They're great. But by the end of it, I was like, yeah, she's just talking. Like I don't even hear any Rouge in there anymore. I agree, Jake, that it's really nice to see her like as part of the main cast, and I hope that continues on. Like we said, hey, Sonic Dream Team, she's a playable character, that's neat, but I want her there doing rougey things that are interesting.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how Silver was like a big part of Sonic Forces, but he wasn't doing any Silver stuff. He was just kind of there to say some really cringy shit.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's funny. I was just thinking, like, again, another controversial statement where I really like Silver in his small part in the story of Team Sonic Racing, because he's doing silvery things by being kind of a silly little guy that everyone picks on that he doesn't realize. I hate to keep coming back to this, but hey, that's why the IDW comics are so good, because these characters get to have in-character moments with their friends.
Side note, not super related, but since we're talking about the VAs and Kazumi Evans who played Rouge, reflecting back on our first couple episodes, we were like, oh man, wouldn't it be great if Gary Chalk appeared in this, or Scott McNeil? I even thought like Ian James Corlett, like to keep that Sonic through line of Canadian actors, but nope. But we got Jacksepticeye.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jacksepticeye and Valkyrie both came back for this arc, which kind of caught me off guard. I assumed they were one and dones.
Yeah. Which, I mean, you say came back, they definitely recorded all their stuff at once. And just like the Netflix release schedule, which, again, they're not bad. It's just, they're there.
Yep.
The jumping ahead again, Jacksepticeye gets to be the devil on Dreadnoughts' shoulder for one last time.
Come on, Captain, let's go and take it for ourselves. Oh.
I know everybody's fighting around us and there's death on the rise, but, big shiny rock.
By the way, at this point, we might as well jump around to plot points, because these last couple episodes blend together so much. It's all in the same place. It's basically one gigantic fight scene for most of it. So, just pick out the bits that we want to talk about at this point, I suppose.
Yep. Yeah, so this is where, yes, the 9 is now made a whole bunch of clone robots, which, again, unless I miss something, is not established that all the clones are coming from the alphas that were beating the crap out of Shadow. Rebel Rouge does come up with a plan. All I remember is that it fails, and then 9 makes the giant big robot.
Yeah.
And
the plan is that the jungle variants go up one flank, the pirate variants go up a different flank, and then the New York variants go up the middle to try to distract and like fight forces and stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the pirate ones are the ones who pretty much like fail almost immediately. The jungle ones get like an episode and a half of being able to somewhat sneak successfully, and then they fail. Yeah, basically that.
Yeah, it's all... Sorry, do you remember like when we were talking about on the last batch that all these variant characters meeting up for the first time was really cool. And it was. But now they're all in the same scenes together, and it's just like, I actually don't care about these guys that much. Most of
Yeah. Yeah, this is the episode where Mangy and Sales like seemingly like die. They want us to believe they're dead. They get caught in a huge explosion, and we do the what is it, Rebels like, Mangy, Sales, are they? And Sonic's, I wasn't fast enough. And like they're gone for the next couple episodes, but because it was so like, come on, man, they're not gonna die. And I literally forgot about it. Like, I'm like, oh, they're just hurt, they're sleeping.
Yeah.
But no, they come back, which is also undercut because over the course of the next few episodes where they try another plan where it's like, we're just going to keep pushing forward. But then every time a character like gets punched by one of these robots, I promise you Sonic stops and like reaches out his hand and goes, character name, no! And it's
funny pun, no!
Yeah.
Which really takes a lot out of it when he's saying stuff like Baton Rouge.
Yeah. Catfish. Oh no. Which it's Catfish that gets bonked on the head real bad.
Oh yeah.
And then he wakes up and almost does our joke, and like, oh no, he puts his hat back on and he's Grounder the genius.
Yeah.
He's a gentleman.
We even sorry, I'm just remembering I think it's the second to last episode where everyone's really getting the crap beat out of them, and we get a sad shot of a version of Froggy, like, falling unconscious.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the last straw for Sonic.
Not Froggy.
Oh. But they keep going back and forth to like, oh, we've got to keep fighting 9. But Sonic's like, but I can't go directly to him or he'll take my energy because he needs it, you see.
I think he mentioned that once.
Yeah. But then he does just start fighting 9 at some point and is just, I guess, being careful.
Yeah.
This is when Sonic's shoes and gloves in the Grim finally activate, and we get to see one more power, and it's pretty cool. He basically like can walk on air because they like project out little platforms. It kind of looks like the cool Rainbow Road in that one Sonic Colors Astro Coaster.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think. And it's pretty neat. And he starts like putting up a shield and like absorbing 9's laser blasts, and they look cool. Like, I don't like the designs of many of his extra shoes, but the powers are cool.
Yeah.
I'm giving them that.
Now, you see, the shield is symbolic because Sonic is always a man of action, but he has to... Sorry.
I'm hanging up this call.
It's symbolic of the wind.
Oh my god, no, that's next
can't
time.
even.
We can't do that right now.
Yeah. Just getting warmed up.
There were two things from Homesick Home that I wanted to mention that I thought were cool. And I've been making notes like throughout these episodes of like just any good lines that I really enjoyed. In Homesick Home, Shadow and Sonic have an exchange where Shadow's helping Sonic up off the ground. Sonic says,
Help a brother up.
We are not related.
That is a good line. That is, Sonic gets knocked down, and this is where Shadow comes back, and he's like, yeah, I've been fighting down here this whole time, and I was cool.
and also Alpha.
But yeah, that is a very good line.
Yeah.
This is also where Shadow is like, if only I had that Chaos Emerald, but it's lost in the void.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get it back. I won't, but
But what if I did?
But what if? The other thing from this episode I want to mention is the Amy freefall fight that we have, but it's Rusty and Blackthorn who are falling through the sky, and they're fighting off the different Robo Birdies. And I like, when there's a free fall in anything, I don't expect it to last as long as this did. But I thought that the choreography and just the fight in general in free fall was actually really interesting, because we don't. Because of especially how Rusty can, like Go Gadget extend arms, like it actually extends the fight, and like there's actual verticality instead of just going down. Like there's going up, going down, a little bit of side to side. I feel like that's
Up and down, all around.
Up and down and all around.
I feel like because of how creative the free fall fight was, honestly, it might be one of my favorite action scenes in the whole show, just because you can only do so much with free fall unless you start adding like actual character elements, and they did that, and it's super interesting to me.
Yeah, like we said earlier, the fights are like really good when they, really get to zero in on a character, but just wish the rest of it was kind of up to par.
Yeah.
And that moment has like it ends on a nice moment too, because Thorn swoops in with Big Birdie and catches him right before, and that feels like better tension of like they're not gonna splatter on the ground and die, but they have a good moment there, and then they all land and they're like, Thorn like finally calls them her sisters, and they're Rusty's. Oh, I've never had a sister, and it's cute. It's a cute moment.
Yeah,
I would watch their Charlie's Angel style spinoff.
Yeah,
yeah.
Thank you, Thorn. We owe you our lives. You would do the same for me. Sisters. Sister, I have never had a sister. Now you got two.
Another thing I'll give this is as sick as I am of the Chaos Council, they have very little to do except fight in these episodes and don't have a lot of times for their dumb, stupid jokes. So, I mean, that's something, I guess. Now, the fact that we never find out who the council is, why they is.
We kind of predicted after a while that they're never going to tell us. And my theory as to why we never find out who these guys actually are, this is my wacky conspiracy theory. I'm assuming they had an explanation in the script, but Sega came along and says, you can't do that. Because I imagine it had to be like some sort of like relations to Eggman or Eggman clones or something, and they just didn't want to do that sort of thing, even if they had all these old... I guess the variants of the other characters are fine, but not this. But that's just, like, we don't know if that's true or not. That's just my theory, because I had to imagine, like, they spent this much time with these characters. They had to have something for them, for why they're there.
Right.
Or maybe not.
Yes, could also be they just didn't bother. They just wanted, like you've said before, they just wanted an outlet for really easy jokes about generational differences. And I'm telling you, man, the thing that really bugs me the most is Dr. Deep. I went from being in the first season, like, we thought he was going to be like, oh, he's like a funny weeaboo. Like, he's, I was practicing the sword. And then all of a sudden he starts talking about yoga and essential oils. And I'm like, oh, they're doing like this, new age crunchy thing. And I'm like, man, you just kind of gave up on that, huh? And, we get a couple of other stupid gamer jokes from, what is even his name? It's Dr. Don't, yeah. And it's, hey, we get a metaverse joke at the very end because he says egg-averse, and boy, that sure aged well, huh? And probably the more than a year ago you wrote it. Oh boy.
It's all these kids on their phones. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Playing their Fortnites.
At least we never have to see that damn baby again.
Oh gosh, yeah.
This.
Yeah, he's dead now.
Throw the baby off a cliff.
They killed him.
Yeah.
Throw him into the void.
I will throw the baby out with the bathwater. Thank you very much.
I did have a couple notes I wanted to make about the Chaos Council since we're talking about them. They're just little small things. One of them is there's a line in Dome Sweet Dome, the second episode. I believe that it's Mr. Doctor, like the main Dr. Robotnik talking to the old man. And Mr. Doctor says,
"Oh, please. With your eyes, you couldn't hit the ground if it weren't for gravity."
And I was like, oh, that's a pretty good one. I like that.
That's pretty good.
That's not bad.
There are some diamonds in the rough.
Yeah. And then in No Escape, where the old man and Dr. Deep help the different Amy's save the pirates in that world. There's a quick scene where Old Man Botnik says something, Deep says something, and then Old Man adjusts his dentures. And I never, ever want to see that ever again. I don't know. I didn't need to see that the first time.
Sorry, it just brings to mind Abe Simpson jokes, really, whenever I see denture.
Which was the style at the time.
I think let's see, the previous one, which is Homesick Home, is where Sonic realizes that every time 9 has to draw power from the prism to, power up the robots or his own powers, that the protective dome that is sealing the Grim off, protecting it from the rest of the Shatterverse that is deteriorating, is shrinking. And so this is where Sonic comes up with his third plan. And I hate it because he basically looks at the screen and says, "I know how to get to 9." And it's,
again,
man, come on. Like, yeah, like we could have, I don't know. It's just really falls flat, but it does, I guess, kind of pay off. Like, it ends up that Sonic goes to confront 9 directly, and he's been fighting him, and 9 has been using his powers, and it seems like all the other characters are getting defeated, and we get some really dramatic ones, but then, Nux pops up behind Sonic, and they're all converging because they realize 9 is running out of power, and yeah, he's getting headaches from absorbing all of this edgy energy and whatnot. And they're starting to take out the alpha robots. So as soon as they defeat the alpha robots, which again, man, I guess they established this, the rest of the clones start disappearing, and this is where we get a face off with Grim Amy and Rusty Rose, and this is where Rusty just pulls out of nowhere, where she's like, "Oh yeah, by the way, I don't need Birdie in my chest to power my robotic parts. That was just a lie to keep me under control." And she just pulls the bird out of her chest and lets it fly away.
Right.
I'm like,
sorry,
sure.
Wouldn't it have been really funny if it went out, tried flying, and I'm just like,
yeah, or went out, flies away, and then Rusty Rose just falls over dead.
even better.
It's like, okay, what does that accomplish? Like, that fully completing her character arc somehow?
I think the only thing it accomplishes is that, like, if she didn't need the bird inside of her, then it just shows that the Chaos Council are just a bunch of dicks who wanted to put a bird inside.
Yeah,
true. The whole thing is like, this feels like it's come way too late. Like, I know it's the end of the story now, but like, it feels like Rusty Rose's whole like arc against the Chaos Council happened like years ago at this point. You know what I
think
mean?
literally at this point.
God, I don't even know anymore. Passage of time.
Oh man, I don't think I ever picked up on, hey, speaking of things you only get in the credits, that the big from New York is just called Denizen 1998, or Denizen, excuse me. I think he's referred to by the what is it, the robot like patroller in the first episode. But,
that is how he's credited.
Yeah, that's just his name, Denizen 1998, which I get it, Sonic Adventure. And like the other characters, like the YouTuber from New York is Squad Commander Red and whatnot. But yeah, so Sonic reveals his plan. That 9 throws it back at him and says, the decay isn't my fault. That was the Chaos Council, and you forget who controls the prism. And he actually starts accelerating the decay, and so he'll destroy the rest of the universe for real. And again, starts fighting Nux specifically, and Sonic again. I think this is where the giant big robot comes back, but then it's
surprise.
Yeah, it's Mangy and Sails are in it,
Pacific
right?
Rim.
Yep.
Because they kind of hint that Mangy actually has some sort of weird inherent tech powers earlier on when he started fiddling with a machine and it started working better.
Which is kind of cute. I said before that the the feral puppy dog noises that this Tails makes is hard not to find cute.
Yeah.
But oh yeah, they're alive because again, they definitely wanted you to think they were dead.
Yeah.
I sure thought it. This is the first show I've ever watched.
I know. SpongeBob roller coaster image. Sorry, that again. I don't want to be too mean here. Oh, and of course the pirate that's trying to tempt Captain Dread is just named Jack.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in this episode, like The Devil is in the Tails, the second to last episode, I made a note here. In some ways, I feel like it's not the fairest criticism, just because this is ultimately a kid show. But I still got to mention, like, I really don't like the inconsistency of how fragile the bots are, because at one point, like, Sonic can destroy 4 of them in 3 seconds, and we literally see that before he confronts 9. And then, like, at different parts of the show, like, it seems like it takes like 3 people just to take out one bot, and it takes like forever, and just the inconsistency of it all. And then, like, later on, we also have we have one of the alphas and then a bunch of copies surrounding Sonic and
Nux.
And then, like, Shadow just comes in and is just like, and I'm here too. And he explodes and kills everything.
But then right before that, Shadow was again getting his ass beat by these same robots. Yeah. And so, like I said, it kind of undercuts how cool Shadow is supposed to be, because he's getting rope-a-doped by these jobbers. And yeah, that just kind of neuters some of the cool moments. Yeah. I mean, again, it is cool that Shadow does just come in and fuck off, I'm Shadow, and then gets electrocuted. But yeah, it's just like you said, it's inconsistent. It's less that I think that, like, oh, they just didn't understand Shadow's powers. It's like, no, it's the inconsistency that just drags the rest of it down.
Yeah. It's just, for what worked in that scene is the
precisely
how it works
Yep,
now.
exactly. It's just all plot convenience, plot contrivance.
Which is unfortunately how they wrap up the whole series as well, is whatever works for, we are out of minutes somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. Basically, the last episode is like Sonic, like, because they do a big, like Sonic and 9 have a big crash and and they fall into the base. And Sonic sees, like, the little hammock and palm tree that 9 has been constructing, crafting, I suppose, on his crafting table. And, Sonic's like, oh, now I get it! I screwed up, I guess, somehow.
To be fair,
yeah.
9 could have just said, hey, look what I made for you.
Yeah, because like you established earlier, 9 has also been cartoonishly evil.
Yeah,
like laughing, and like I said, like evil power-up noises, shooting green lasers,
crazy faces,
and even Sonic. Yeah, Sonic says at some point, like, "Oh no, that he's not going to give the power is going crazy. It's not going to stop. I have to get through to him." And I rolled my eyes because I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like, he's told you so many times that he doesn't want you to get through to him. But then they immediately renege on that in the next episode, because it's like, "Oh no,
we need to finish the show."
Like,
that's essentially what it feels like. Sonic's like, "Oh man, I'm sorry." And 9's like, yeah, well, I was really upset, so,
I was angry.
It really is like that.
He's just grumpy.
And it's like, well, all's forgiven. And to be fair, the other characters come in and like, all right, we're kicking this little child's ass. What's going on?
I know, I love
so I was like, no.
Mr. Dr. Eggman literally says,
enough talk! Light this box up! Full volley!
Yeah! He's got the gat.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man.
Oh, but then yes, they have to be like, no, we finally worked it out, guys. I was wrong. 9 was sad, but now we're happy.
For real.
Oh man. Not to get into the Sonic should be allowed to show emotions, but there is quite a few expressions here where I guess it's combined with this Sonic who just seems, like I said, kind of stupid.
Yes.
That his overreaction, I'm like, come on, man, it's not that deep.
It's not that
And then Tails 9. Oh, I don't want to start that up again. Whoops, that's the mistake Sonic
You better
made.
look out your window to see if the giant fox head is hanging out there now.
Yeah. 9 just literally says, like, oh, I pushed it too far. This wasn't supposed to happen. I'm sorry.
I'm not me when I don't eat a Snickers bar.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, well, I guess
I'm just a
it's
little guy.
Yeah.
I'm just a little birthday boy.
Just a little guy.
And so the decay is too far gone. It's like all the characters are like, oh man, I guess this is it. And then Sonic says, no, not yet. And now he is going to willingly give up his energy to complete the prism and hopefully reverse the the decay and put everything back.
So it goes on the Sonic Juicer.
Yep.
Yeah, the Sonic Juicer. Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember. One of y'all brought this up where, Sonic's, he's saying like, if Sonic says, now, if I do this, everybody has to be nice to Nine now. We're going to leave him in this formless hellscape that he is going to shape to his will, but he's nice now. And that same goes for you, Nine. You got to be nice and not destroy the Shatterverse. And, Nux says, well, how can we trust him? And Nine just says,
you can trust me.
You can trust me.
And that's it.
Oh, come on.
Like, I was because I was joking before we started the show, like, about that exchange, and then like Nine's just like, you can trust me. Look how sad my eyes are.
Yeah, which you should. Okay, I would just say cut that line, because then right after Rebel says we have no choice. It all ends here if we don't, and then Nine says you have my word. Like,
yeah, that would work.
Like that one little edit just makes it seem not stupid.
Yeah.
Might as well just been like, it's just a prank, bro.
Just a prank.
Yeah. It's not. No, Nine is doing the. He just looks right at him and says, "I have decided to become not mentally ill. It's all better now." The Hannibal Lecter pose.
He didn't even do a YouTube apology video. I don't know how I can believe it.
Oh my gosh.
I'm sorry you guys took it the wrong way that I was trying to destroy the Shatterverse.
And Sonic
I apologize if you were upset.
Pulls out his ukulele. And all the while, Sonic's like, "You guys don't know him like I do. He's he's a good guy, really.
He helped me get through a lot of hard times.
Happiest days of my life.
He's changing,
Oh man,
he's put in the work,
Sonic steps on the Sonic energy juicer, like you said, and it all gets drained out of him, and
he gets ghosty.
Yeah, he gets ghosty. I saw someone else point out, like, that sure seems to have been happening to Sonic a lot lately.
Yeah,
I'm going ghost.
Getting corrupted or energy drained to save his friends. And okay, I thought it was actually pretty funny that we get one more bit from the Eggmen that were like, oh, now that Sonic's drained, it's time to swoop in and get the thing. I'm like, yeah, that is pretty Eggman.
Yeah,
but of course they're fighting with
now
each
we're
other.
in the refractory period. We can jump in and take Sonic while he's weak.
So yeah, like we said, the Chaos Council, like they try to seize the opportunity because Sonic is all ghosty. He's got no energy. And even though they're clearly outnumbered, but whatever, they're like getting ready to fight, and then Dr. Deep starts things off with like, "When I shape things into the way I want it," and then of course the through line of like they can't agree on anything, so they all start. Start fighting with each other, and then Nine is able to sneak over to his computer, open up a portal, and one by one they each start getting shot through a portal into the void just to float forever. I do appreciate that, like, near the beginning of the fight, there's a scene where Shadow just wants to beat ass on them, and Rebel's just like, no, wait, let's just watch. And then later on, he finally gets to get in there and like do some fighting. But eventually they all get knocked out there, and of course, Mr. Doctor's like, "You haven't seen the last of me. I'll."
Yeah. I mean, it's implied that they're going to like float back to New York, but I mean, it is funnier that they're getting sucked out into the void of space forever, including that damn baby.
Finally, toss them into that like black hole where the Chaos Emerald supposedly went.
Yep. So Sonic is not doing good. He is not only drained of energy, but he is like fading out of existence. He has so been drained. But
Sonic is like me for like the first half of January.
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man, this month, boy. But they do look up and see through the portal that the worlds are coming back together. The portals are being rebuilt, and the characters are so happy to see their worlds come back. And okay, so here is my biggest issue with this ending, because they don't recognize a portal, and we like, oh no, that's Green Hill, that's the Sonic, the real Sonic world, the only one that matters, and they're like, we've got to get Sonic back. But here's my beef with this ending is, again, I guess they didn't spell it out, but the biggest issue with these Shatterverses is the reality was shattered when Sonic broke the prism, and I thought for sure they talked about that it created these worlds, and because Sonic was the one who shattered it and got imbued with this energy, he is not there in any of these worlds. There's not a pirate Sonic or a wise talking Brooklyn accented Sonic. And same thing with Shadow, because he blipped into the the void with chaos control. But like the entire crux of the plot now relies on the fact that 9 exists and like had a bad life because he never had a Sonic figure to discover his true potential and like help him be a happy, good person. So now they're trying to say that all of these worlds are going to keep existing, but as they were, like, the Chaos Council is, implied to, they're still going to be in charge of New York. Like, Boss Cage Mage is still going to be like this horribly overrun, like, jungle with little food to eat. Same with the No Place. But Sonic is going to go back to, quote unquote, the real world and live happily ever after. So none of these worlds really get anything.
Nope.
Are they going to continue to exist? Because given how it ends, I'm not certain.
I mean, if that happens, because what happens is they get Sonic back. Like, I want to talk about that sequence. It's very cool.
Yes.
They get Sonic back. He opens his eyes, and it's like 20 seconds before he shattered the prism in the fight with Dr. Eggman, and he doesn't shatter it, and so then the show doesn't happen. They Sonic 06 this. Like, I'm sure everyone listening to this already knew that, because that's the first thing everybody said. That's what Ian Flynn said. But if that's what happens, that the Shatterverse never existed, then literally none of the hemming and hawing and Sonic making friends matters, because none of those people existed and are essentially dead. Even 9 doesn't exist. He's not in the Grim. So him just literally 5 minutes before in this episode saying, okay, but everyone has to be nice to each other and leave 9 alone here. Okay, that didn't matter. Like, you literally, it just really bugs me
that's kind of the show.
They didn't conclude anything.
Well, I think. Go ahead.
No. I'm done. That's just that is what really bothered me. Like, after all these episodes and all this dragging this out into 7 more episodes of fighting and talking in circles, that the ending to the show is that it didn't happen, and none of these new friends that Sonic made, either they just get to live their post-apocalyptic non-Sonic lives, and, I guess you could say, they'll defeat the council in New York, or, they'll continue pirating and they're all friends now. But still, like, pretty dire situations, or none of it happened and they're all quote-unquote dead.
I don't know. They didn't really specify. And in the end, all Sonic gets from this is like, I should cooperate with my friends more. And then I did, and we won. And it's like, yeah, that's what you learned from this, is that you learned that his friends are a good team. Glad that finally sunk in, Sonic, after all these years. So, honestly...
There's a better message about, taking personal responsibility in there. Like, I feel like they could have spent more time focusing on it, but I don't feel like it was as much there as it should be.
Yeah.
They set a whole lot of stuff up and then didn't do anything. Like, I'm sorry, like, just recently this popped up on my feed, and it's this panel from Akewood where Lyobot says to Philippe, "The end, no moral," and that's the former line of Sonic Prime.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if that's the whole thing, that Sonic should listen to his friends more, then he learned that in the first episode when Tails was trying to tell him to, you know, lay off the big robot that didn't have Eggman in it. And then Sonic comes in. We talked about that. That's a good moment because he's like, yeah, man, I should have listened to you. You were right. Like, oh man, it sucks, dude. Like, if that's what you're supposed to take from this, because then it really makes me irritated because, yeah, I'm saying it's not that Sonic has to be a completely static character who never learns anything, but he didn't learn anything in this show, and so he just acts like a moron who's not very Sonic-like the whole show.
And that's what bothers me about this. This gives so much fuel to the kind of people who are like, Sonic should not have a character. He should just be a legendary hero who's always cool and always winning. And I'm just like, yeah, but then just because the extreme here sucked so much. What Sonic is in this show, which is really annoying, doesn't get stuff, is like worse than the kind of stuff they do in the movie at times. This is what people think IDW Sonic is actually acting like. And, no.
Yeah,
Incorrect.
yeah. I mean, it's so ridiculous that I hope, like, it becomes anti-fuel where people try and say, like, oh, this is American writers just don't get Sonic. And I'm like, well, first of all, these guys are Canadian. And second of all, like, this is so on the extreme of they just slotted the character of Sonic the Hedgehog into this every man needs to learn a lesson archetype that it's at some points like unrecognizable. And again, like I said, it really makes me irritated because, like we said, the voice actors are great. Devin Mack is a good Sonic.
Oh yeah,
I really want to see him play Sonic though.
Yeah.
This is a just not a good representation of that.
There's some Sonic in there, I think. There is some Sonic in there, especially when it comes to the dynamic between him and Shadow.
Yes.
Like, there are times when I'm just like, oh yeah, by the way, scene where Shadow is carrying Sonic and running him to the end.
Yes. Princess carrying him.
Yes.
I love it. Yeah, that's why I wanted to...
For the Sonado fans, dude.
I wanted to talk about that last because even though, like, I thought for sure, like, Shadow mentioned that damn Chaos Emerald, that they are struggling to get Sonic to the Green Hill portal. First Thorn and Birdie offers to take him, and then Birdie hurts her wing and is flying down, and then Black Rose comes back with the big flying pirate ship, and they're surprised at that for some reason. I'm like, they're your friends, man. But, and Shadow is on there because he needed a ride too. That was kind of a funny moment where he just steps up and grunts and they're like, oh, I suppose you need a ride too, don't you, Shadow? And then the ship can't make is not going to make it. It's running out of power. Rusty's trying to clear away. And then Shadow steps up and, puts Sonic over his shoulder and is like, I'll take it from here, guys. And we get a very cool sequence of where he's blasting around with his air shoes and doing flips. And then, yes, like, Sonic is hurt so bad that he puts him in a Princess Carry and takes one last, like, supersonic explosion leap. And
he has a shadow boom.
I thought for sure that before that happened, Shadow was going to look and see, like, the void where the Chaos Emerald was and just dive into it. And you get the characters going like, Shadow, no, what are you doing? And there's a beat. And then he blips back in with Chaos Control. And that's how but nope, that doesn't happen. The Emerald is just lost forever. Except no, it's not, because the second they make it to the Green Hill portal, Sonic opens his eyes and, realizes where he is. And, they defeat Eggman. He doesn't get the prism. And then Shadow Chaos Controls it away. And that's the last time we see him in this show.
Yeah.
Like, he just, I don't know, took it to somewhere.
Which, we get, like, two good lines in those two separate scenes. Like, when he starts Princess carrying him, Sonic says,
I never knew you were a hugger.
Do you you want me to save you or not?
Yeah,
And then,
like you said, there's some really good lines between them.
And then, yeah, when Shadow shows up near the end of the fight, in the cave, so first of all, this is annoying. He just pulls the Chaos Emerald out of nowhere.
Yes,
BS, but we'll move on.
they look. It's not just he's pulling it out of subspace where Sonic characters keep it. They treat it like a big reveal, like, oh, he's got it back. It's like, yeah, but
technically he never lost it because time.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
But the next line that he has is so good. It's, I am the ultimate life form. I go wherever I want.
Yeah.
It's a corner game to let him say Shadow things.
Yeah, yeah, freaking Shadow Swanson over here.
Yes.
Yep. And then a really good chaos control. And I love a good shouting of a character move like that, which I don't like, because he can teleport to the void. Like, did he take it to the Grim and Nine? Did he just take it to the void where no one could get it? Whatever. It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't.
I'm going to hide it under the couch cushions where no one will find it.
Or if we want to continue Luke's genius move of Shadow Swanson, he's going to break up the Chaos Emerald and bury it under several areas of Green Hill.
Yeah, he's just going to bury it in the woods. Like his gold storage.
Put it in the box with porn written on it.
Oh yeah, the thing Sonic's not allowed to look at. He'll never find it.
Exactly.
God, I think, I'm just imagining Rouge coming across that and being like, well, I do not want to know.
Yeah. What kind of pornography Shadow the Hedgehog would be into.
Oh, man.
Sorry, BoJack Horseman. I wasn't jerking off to the picture. I was jerking off to what the picture represents.
Oh, my gosh.
Oh, boy. Sonic's reunited with his friends, the real ones, the ones not voiced by Vincent Tong.
Yeah.
Oh, I did want to say, first of all, poor Adam Narada, cast as this version of Knuckles, who I think I can count on one hand the number of lines he actually gets as Knuckles.
Gets that whole banner producing Adam Narada as Knuckles, and he's not really very much.
Yeah. And I wanted to give one last shout out to Vincent Tong as the other Knuckles, because there are times where he actually, like when he's fighting and, throwing punches and going, he sounds like Nobutoshi Kana, Knuckles' longtime Japanese VA. And I just thought that was cool. I was like, oh yeah, it kind of sounds like him. But yeah, I still don't know why they did that. I swear, again, it was another Sega just came in at the last minute and says, he needs to sound like the other guy more. The guy we're not using. So get somebody else in there.
But what about the others? No, they can stay.
Yeah.
Well, I already recorded all. That's way too many lines. We're not replacing that.
Session fees cost money.
Yeah.
So this final episode ends with Sonic bringing a big old plate of chili dogs to the beach where everybody's basically having a picnic. Tails notices that Sonic's been different ever since the cave, and Sonic's ready to just tell the whole story, and then we get a big Mountain Dew Baja Blast explosion from the cliff.
And then Shao Kahn's face appears in the sky. You weak, pathetic fools. I've come for your souls.
Godzilla comes out of the ocean.
So I'm just imagining Christopher Lambert shows up for some reason. Is I don't think so.
Long time no see, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Man, oh man. But yeah, Sonic didn't get a chance to Sonic's probably going to forget about this, so it's just not going to matter.
Sonic didn't get a chance to say what lesson he's learned. There's a teaser for some villain or bad guy that we're never going to know what it is.
It's literally just a wave
and
of
the
energy.
Adventures continue.
Yeah, and Snively comes out and is like, I'm not alone!
I think we can all agree that when we know a Sonic show or Sonic property isn't going to go anywhere else and something like that happens, we can all just say, oh, Ixis Naugus again.
Yeah.
The harbinger of dead continuities.
Oh boy. To end on a note, I thought it was cute that the chili dog Sonic made kind of looked like the sea
No,
dog.
I'm pretty sure they just reused the Sea Dog model.
Yes, I'm saying
That's what I thought he was making. No, they just acted like
he never mentions it, but he does say something about like, oh, you're late, and he said, oh, I just wanted to make sure they were nice and tasty, and I thought, oh yeah, he made the sea dogs. That's kind of cute. Hey, Orbot and Cubot are in this last episode too. Just to, hey, remember them?
Yeah. There goes my theory about them being the ones secretly in control.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eggman says something about like, we're going to have a bigger fleet. And then Cubot's like, I've always wanted a bigger fleet. And I'm like, okay, interesting.
Okay.
Good for you.
I don't think he knows what fleet means.
I think he thinks maybe Fleetway, like he wants more Fleetway comics.
Oh, he wants Fleetway the Hedgehog.
Excited about Enema, maybe? I don't know.
That's Sonic Prime.
That's Sonic Prime.
Didn't go super... Oh, we talked about, surely he turned Supersonic or something near the... No.
Nope.
No Supersonic, no Cowboys, never know who the Chaos Council were, so never worked up what Sonic's lesson was going to be, what his redemption was going to lead to, didn't have his spiritual redemption.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Like even beyond, what we've talked about, where it does just feel like Sonic the Hedgehog inserted into a generic multiverse plot. I think the biggest problem I have with the show is that it has a lot of wasted potential. Like I think back to our first episode talk about it and all of like the ideas for cool concepts they could explore and things they could try and Sonic-y elements they could add in. And it's like those opportunities were always there, even with, having to make sacrifices for the limited budget. And it's like, there's so much more they could have done, so much more they could have like zeroed in on what they really wanted those core messages of the series to be and everything else like that. And I feel like they just didn't go for it as much as any of us would have hoped.
Yeah.
Isn't it funny though that like, I feel like part of the reason they did this is because multiverse stuff is cool now.
Mm-hmm.
But you'd think like they would use that as an opportunity to do what all the other multiverse things are. Pulling from other Sonic continuities or worlds. And granted, we knew they weren't going to do that. So what's the point of just doing a bunch of cavemen and pirates and stuff?
Yeah, just to be like the devil's advocate here. But like you said, multiverse stuff is popular. It was also popular 4 years ago when probably this show was being finalized. Like,
true, yeah. But isn't it funny though that they're still doing it because that's what Sonic does. They still do it like unironically. So
and I 100% guarantee you the universes we got were limited to just that because of the budget.
Speaking of budget, like that, since we're all kind of like coming down to our final thoughts of the show, like that was one thing that I really like kind of focused in on at like the end of all this. Like we've all talked about how like this whole show, like especially this season, but this whole show could have been condensed like by a lot because a lot of stuff just happens over and over and over again. And my thought is like, because this is an original Netflix property, this really could have just been, in my opinion, this could have been 2 maybe 90-minute each original Sonic movies. And you could have you could have even done like the Star Wars thing where one ends on a sour note and then we have the redemption in the next movie. And like imagine, like as cool and as really inspired as the action scenes we got were, imagine how much cooler the animation and the action scenes and even the story would have been if we had like movie level budget and time. That would have been really cool. I really think this would have been better as just 2 separate movies that are, linked together.
Mm-hmm. Or even, if it had to be a series, you could have, I feel like you could have cut the amount of episodes in half even and put the resources towards that. But then, both of those rely on, although your movie pitch works better, but like then they can't release them over the course of almost 3 years.
Right.
To have all these toy lines as well,
Exactly.
One of the reasons they did this all together is just have a bunch of different the variations of Sonic characters that they can sell.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel like such a doofus for not putting it in our original show notes, because I know I brought up the article where a Sega producer basically said like, hey, we're not too worried about how well the show itself does Sonic Prime because we want this to be like brand synergy and get people excited about Sonic. And we've got toys coming. I know I mentioned that in the first episode.
I see those toys all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, and they're not bad toys. They're the same quality as the current toy line, and they are cool. Like they made the entire Knuckles Dreadnought Angel Island ship, whatever it's called, and I'm like,
Angel's Voyage, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, dang, they look kind of cool up on my shelf. But
Yeah.
the fact that, this is linked to a show that I don't really think has much Sonic the Hedgehog in it that I enjoy, I'm probably not going to pick any of those up unless I find one of the cool Shadow ones where he's just Shadow the Hedgehog. Yeah, like I said at the top, and I will reiterate, like, hey, if you're just looking for a cool action show, especially for the Sonic the Hedgehog demographic, which is children and tweens and early teens who probably haven't played all the games we have, I think they'll like it just fine. And they're probably not going to care too much about all of the little things that bother us, which is not saying shows for kids should be stupid. And, like if you've listened to the show, we know we don't believe that, but just putting it out there that, if you have a kid that is just interested in Sonic, they're going to like this just fine.
We were saying we were being like big horrible nerds before, and that this show is solid enough for young fans and entertaining enough for newcomers, but I feel like this last batch did let it down a bit. I feel like I could imagine kids getting bored in this last batch. I know I was.
I don't disagree.
And time passes a lot faster for me now.
When I was watching these last few episodes, I also happened to be listening to an older episode of the podcast Parks and Recollection, which, is in the original run of the show. It was Rob Lowe and one of the original writers of Parks and Recreation, just, doing one of those podcasts where they go episode by episode talking about things. And Rob Lowe had a really good thing that he mentioned from like a viewer voicemail, where, to summarize it all, he basically said that like he would rather have his kids see something that's like out of their age range, but probably view it with them instead of seeing it by themselves. But he would rather his children see something that's out of their age range, but is still good and still worth watching, than something that is within their age range and is just absolute garbage. And I am not, let me be upfront, I'm not saying Sonic Prime is garbage. It's not even close to garbage. But this last batch of episodes, with just how much fighting there was specifically, and I think it's because I listened to that bit from Rob Lowe, I was like, if I had kids, I would let them watch most of Sonic Prime, and then I would just skip some of these episodes, because I'm like, there's just too much fighting, and as you said, Chris, they might just get bored. But I also wouldn't want them just to be like, we're going to punch each other for like 5 hours now.
Those last few dramatic fight scenes, I think really are counterintuitive, because they just don't earn those moments. Like there's some pretty the robots punching the characters in the face, and I'm like, if this was the first time we saw that and you hadn't already tried to pretend to kill off characters 2 episodes ago, I think you might have earned that better. But it's like they just threw all of their action spaghetti at the wall, and all of it stuck, and all of the story bits that justify it fell off. I understand what you're saying, because I remember growing up, and it's 4 p.m. on a weekday afternoon after I finished school, and I'm watching an edited for TV version of Jaws with my dad, and he's explaining when he saw it as a kid, and it's a very scary movie for a little kid, but yes, I'll never forget that, because that was quote unquote a real movie. And every kid's different, every parent's different, but I agree with that sentiment, to where I would much rather show kids something, like you said, a little out of their age range, so they can, experience something new and broaden their horizons. Then, I mean, look, again, we're not saying Sonic Prime is on the level, but I mean, there are some really bad kid shows out there. And I'm not even talking about stuff for babies like Coco Melon. I mean, sorry, Nation of Canada and the cast of this show, but a lot of these Canadian Flash cartoons from the early 2000s, I'm sorry, even sub Johnny Test.
Oh man.
That are just you know, like you really question like who decided this was a good idea? Who but no, I think Sonic Prime is fine for some people out there. I'm sorry this last batch really soured us specifically on our and I came into this show with pretty bottom of the barrel expectations, and they still tripped at the goal line for me.
Yeah, it kind of is a bummer. Like, I have seen like polar opposite reactions to this last batch.
Yeah,
like one person who I said who really enjoyed Sonic Prime went on to say, like, at the end they were like, man, you know what? Sonic Prime is the best bit of Sonic media that's ever been made. I cannot believe... This is someone who hasn't played many Sonic games, just by the way.
Okay, your interpretation is valid, but so is mine.
so is the people who watched and played Sonic things before. But yeah, and you know what? Like, I can see people enjoying this. Then I've got other friends who are just like, man, Sonic Prime is terrible. The whole show is bad all the way through. It's almost as bad as Sonic Underground. I'm like, well, we just watched a bunch of Sonic Underground, so no music video cut-ins in this show. So there's that.
Yeah. In conclusion, Sonic Prime is a land of contrast.
Just gonna keep doing that. We've still not had the perfect Sonic show. That's one of the things we brought up. It's like lots of people saying, "Oh man, I haven't had my perfect Sonic show, and this isn't either." And yet now the show's over. It's like, yep, this is definitely not the perfect Sonic show.
Yeah,
it's all right.
I remember another person who I don't even think started Sonic Prime because they specifically said like, yeah, it's not the show I want. They literally just want like, hey, can we have some animated adventures of the IDW comics? And I'm like, yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm not foisting that on this show. Like, this show was never going to be that, but yeah, that might be my quote unquote perfect Sonic show at this point.
Yeah, and you know what the thing is? It's like, the way this ended, like we mentioned, it 06's itself. It's no longer relevant anymore. Like nothing in it mattered. So I guess it could be canon to the games because, yeah, didn't happen.
Yeah. I did say, was that just in our warm up? I said Sonic Prime is canon the way the Sonic popcorn machine is canon.
Yeah.
Oh boy!
I've spent this entire last arc just thinking of that Orbot quote from Sonic Boom. Just think of the hundreds of stories to be told using the same 8 characters in 4 locations. The possibilities are limitless.
Yeah, that, but unironically in this case, apparently.
Yeah. Yep. See, yeah, I saw random people just talking about like, at least Boom was funny. I'm like, yeah.
I'd say this show was funny sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes
there were a couple of good moments, and I will say like. The other thing, just because I like the Japanese cast a lot, I like the fact that there's more performances here to hear from them because it's pretty funny. It's also funny to hear, Junichi Kanemaru like the same way Roger and Junichi in Frontiers, where they are obviously doing a much more subdued, like quiet Sonic. It's funny to hear Kanemaru in the Prime Japanese dub just like trying to match this same manic energy that is not usually in his Sonic's wheelhouse. So hey, that's fun too. Turn on that Japanese dub and follow along with that. That's an excuse to rewatch this show.
But what it comes down to is, and this is the thing that sticks in my craw, this is a show that had Tails as the villain. And it was boring at the end. Yeah. Like, it should have been so interesting. It wasn't, though.
No. Because it just ends.
Yeah.
They just stop.
I do, before we, completely wrap it up, I do have some positive final thoughts that I want to leave it on because, one of the reasons we have this podcast is because despite some of the negative stuff in Sonic, we still want to bring a positive energy to things. So, I just want to mention a few things. The biggest thing that I appreciate about this show, that I genuinely appreciate, is that it has the foundations of ambitiousness. And I really felt that when, at the end, when the Shatterverses, the different worlds were being put back together. And I'm just like, these writers and art concepts and animators had these really interesting ideas to make this multiverse and have these separate worlds where, to be fair, some of them are pretty empty, but like these really interesting ideas, and there's a lot of really cool ambition here, like in the action scenes, in the settings, and even with a few story concepts. I wish that it went further, but I still appreciate the foundations, and that's at least what the show can be based on. I also appreciate that throughout the show, we do have a few moments of slowdown where we get to have some, as I called it, frontier-style discussions between characters, where it was deeper than just like, all right, let's go, stuff like that. And we've been talking about it so much, but the action scenes across the board are just, like I said earlier, they range from okay to just like fantastic. A lot of them are just so good, and I never felt like there was a particularly bad action scene. Like I didn't feel like watching one detracted from my experience from the show. I mean, we kind of for this last batch, but that's just because the story progression was zero. The voice acting, as we've all said, I think is just great across the board. I don't feel like anybody put in a bad performance. And I also really appreciated that a lot of the characters, including their variants, got to have different levels of having character arcs. Like, we joked that Dredd had the best character arc, and his is basically like taking 2 steps forward from me beauty to actually the treasure was me friends along the way. But I genuinely like the fact that with the episodes we were given, almost every character had some sort of growth. Especially like, standouts are Dredd, Rusty Rose, really those two actually. So like,
I mean, Thorn got some.
Yeah, Thorn actually had some really good character growth too. It's really mostly the Amy's.
Gee, Amy, why do you get 2 characters of good character development?
We've all said our pieces about the negative aspects of the show, but I genuinely want to praise like the really good aspects of the show. And I see the ambition in it. I just wish it could have been elevated more, but it's there and I like it.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm still really high on the
presentation.
The presentation and Thorne's arc in the first season. I think that's really special. I think they got what makes like this newer characterization of Amy interesting. The fact that she's less, obsessed with Sonic and more about she just wants to like spread her love for nature and the world like to other people. And whether it was a coincidence or not, I feel like that comes through in like Thorne's arc. And yeah, I really still think that's really solid. And like the fact that the ending like doesn't go anywhere for me, like doesn't take away from that. Like Thorne is still a cool character because they did that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree.
It was all right.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of where it's at. It's like, I don't hate the show.
Oh yeah, no.
I enjoyed like the first two-thirds of it. The last one was okay, but I didn't like sit through it as much as I did the other ones. I was just like, I'm going to take this one at a time because, man, I don't know.
This last arc really was the time eater of Sonic Prime. Just taking something that had people were having a lot of fun with, and then just completely blowing it at the end.
Yeah, literally ate a lot of my time.
Speaking of things I hope they fix, but probably won't. The
time
eater in Sonic Generations Remastered. I do also want to say, again, like just for the format of this show, like when we have revisited other Sonic shows, we've taken it very much in small chunks. Like we did a 2-parter of Sat AM. We did, several episodes, but it was technically an arc of Adventures of Sonic. And Sonic Underground, it was 1. And we're still deciding how we're going to revisit Sonic X. And with Sonic Prime, we're never going to be able to do that because of how they released it. And I don't know, in an alternate universe where they dumped all 23, technically 24 because of the double length pilot episodes at once, like, would we have done that? Probably not for our sakes, but we had to, tackle this all at once. And so it's hard. It's easier to be harsh on it when like, yeah, we're consuming a lot on it, but just saying in the future, hey, maybe in another 10 years if we're all still alive, we'll revisit Sonic Prime for the nostalgia and do it only our favorite episodes.
Because we're certainly not going back for the next season of this because there won't be one. We're sure of it.
No, I won't even say I called it because the writing was on the wall.
Yeah.
but only on the wall and not in the show.
There have been worse media adaptations of video games. Boy,
there's been worse media adaptations of Sonic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just to, you know, we got that third Sonic movie coming out, but I mean, there's a lot we had to criticize about how that movie handles it, but it just works a little better. I mean, mostly because we know the movies are their own things. Like, they're not using the one-to-one video game models, and they're not saying, oh yeah, this is quote unquote canon, whatever that means.
I think that does put a level of unnecessary, like, kind of, people are more ready to put it under a microscope and maybe kind of give it a bit unfair, I can't even think of the word.
Which all that probably means to Sega is now when they say something or everything is canon, you know, that's a joke that Ian Flynn has that people take way too seriously. But I'm telling you, all it probably means to Sega is now they want everything that comes out from Sonic from here on, you know, except the movies, which are like delineated clearly, is they don't want it to interrupt their brand synergy.
Yeah.
So they want it to be recognizable as the same Sonic in the game. So when they say something is canon, and you know, I would even want to like track down where like someone from Sega said that, but what they mean is we just want this to be recognizable to people, and what they don't know is that there are lots of people online, ourselves included, I'm sure, that take that as a completely like different statement. So shame on them.
Regardless of whether it was called canon or not, I think Sonic fans would still have like overanalyzed this, because
for sure,
that's like what we are.
Yes. That's just what we do. It is not a moral
Sonic fans, as somebody who spends a lot of his time just editing a wiki and being really obsessed with canonicity, y'all need to fucking chill.
Yeah. Shouldn't be like us making 3 podcast episodes about one show. But it's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.
The Sonic Prime story.
You know what? It is fine. In the end, that's all I got to say about it. It's fine.
Yeah.
I didn't like it all the way through. I didn't like everything about it. But I don't regret watching it. I'm glad we got another Sonic thing. Maybe one day we'll get a Sonic show that we really, really like, but we'll get there. Maybe.
One of these days. But until that day comes, I think that brings us to the end of our Sonic Prime discussion, possibly for all time. We'll see.
Possibly. We'll see what we feel up to in the future, I suppose.
But until whatever and whenever that is, you can find me on the various social media websites at CyberLink420.
You can find me around the internet as GameBuddy, sometimes with a 123, but if you find me, I'm sure you'll be able to tell the difference.
And you can find me all across the internet as Faulerro. That's Faulerro.
Love that jingle. And you can find me on the socials as RockTheJake and on Twitch as Mr. RockTheJake.
And a very special thanks, as always, to Amy Waters for using our theme song from the album Gotta Go Slow. You can check out more of her work on YouTube and Bandcamp, and you can also find her on various socials at Amy Waters Music. And of course, please remember to subscribe, review, share the show, you know, all the typical stuff to help us really kind of spread out and cover a lot more ground online, get more fans listening. But next time, it's a good thing we've talked a lot about Sonic's characterization this show, because next time we're doing it for real. We're going to, for our 2nd anniversary episode, it's going to be all about who is Sonic the Hedgehog. Just really kind of drilling down on the character and how he has been portrayed over the years, and really kind of trying to zero in on what really defines Sonic and what are those core character elements, and maybe even why everybody's idea of who Sonic is and what he should be is just so different no matter who.
Yeah. And I guarantee part of the reason, part of the people you mainly want to blame for this is Sega themselves.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like there's going to be many uses of the phrase "in my opinion" on the episode.
I'm thinking now, like, it'd be funny if at the end of the next episode we all come with like 4 different opinions on who Sonic is.
I mean, Maybe. Like, it does feel like it's a disparate thing for every single person, so really interested to talk about this, and we'll try not to be really mean to Sonic fans who have very, very violently strong opinions about this topic.
Indeed we will, but until then, I'm CyberLink.
I'm GameBuddy.
I'm Faulerro.
I'm RockTheJake, and out of the frying pan and into your gullet. Pirates have different sayings.
Farewell, Sonic Prime, wherever you are.
This has been The Hill is Always Greener, and we'll see you in the shatter space. I mean, on the other side.
We'll see you next time. Wait, no, that's someone else's. By the way, did you know the last episode of Prime, when we talked about Prime, it cut off randomly? I was just listening to it earlier. I was like, uh-oh, what happened there? So I hope that doesn't happen this time.